So we are now in the concluding discourse of chapter 14, where we have discussed the three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. These three gunas are the three attitudes of our minds, which all of us have. These three gunas or the three attitudes are present in all of us at all times in different proportions. But at any one time, one of these moods predominate over the others. At any one time, one mood predominates over the others. But the three moods are present even in the saint. He has tamasic moods and rajasic moods. And even the criminal has sattvic moods at times. It is the proportion that matters. So if a person is in a sattvic mood, how is that kind of a person described? He will be most of the time calm, composed, self-controlled, very kind and compassionate, ever willing to help others. He is always alert and bright, doing everything perfectly with no evil tendencies. And that kind of a person is what we call a godly person or a saintly person. On the other hand, if a person is very active, very dynamic and restless, constantly working feverishly out of greed for his own personal gains, going from one project to another, trying to aggrandize himself, to accumulate and hoard wealth, and seeking power and recognition, that kind of a person is called rajasic. And the third kind, if a person is lazy, unmotivated, declining to do anything, unable to make any decisions, always ending up doing the wrong actions, is very delusional, meaning always has a distorted perceptions of reality, and needing and not heeding to any advice. If anybody tells them, why don't you try to do it this way? This, if you do it this way, you might be able to help yourself and help others around. They won't heed any advice given to them. In fact, they will find some excuse to point out to you that you are the one who is not doing right and that they are perfectly okay. That kind of a person is called tamasic. Now, thoughts determine behavior and actions, and these thoughts are determined by the vasanas. The vasanas are these gunas. These are the thoughts. For those who are not familiar, we all have a body, a mind and an intellect. The mind and intellect are controlled. The mind and intellect are just a bundle of thoughts. It's the different functions that determines determines whether it's the mind or the intellect. If the thoughts are mainly about your feelings and emotions, it is called the mind. If it is about ideas, discriminatory and judgmental issues, those thoughts are called the intellect. So this combination of the mind and intellect is the subtle body, and that is determined by the kind of vasanas or the impressions that we have in our mind. That determines the kind of thoughts that we have. So if we have good thoughts, our actions would be good. If our thoughts are evil, then our actions would be tyrannical and evil. So that's what is meant here. The thoughts determine our behavior and actions, and the thoughts are determined by our vasanas. The vasanas are of the three types, the three gunas that I talked about. The sattvic thoughts, the rajasic thoughts, and the tamasic thoughts. These are the three types of vasanas also that we have. Now, these gunas, so obviously these vasanas determine our thoughts, and our thoughts determine our actions. So which means these gunas are the ones that determine our life that we live here. If our life is a noble life, that we are living for the sake of helping others and doing good to everybody, then our vasanas must be driving us, our sattvic vasanas that are driving our behavior. By the same token, these thoughts, these gunas, not only determine our actions during this life, but it controls our life even after death. Now, what happens after death is a matter of speculation, or that's what people think, that it is just a matter of speculation as to what happens after you die. Because nobody who dies comes back to tell you what it is like on the other side. And most religions, not most religions, all religions, accept the fact that there is life after death. That there is not, that the death is not the end of everything. That there is something that happens after death. All religions accept that fact. But all other religions say, from that point on, it is just a dogmatic statement as to what happens. Like, they say, your soul will go to heaven or to hell. No logic or reason behind it, but they say, well, if you do good in this life, then you go to heaven. If you do bad, then after death you go to hell. It doesn't sound logical because we are created as imperfect human beings, which means we are bound to make mistakes. And when you make mistakes and you die, then you are condemned to hell for the rest of your life. What kind of a game is that? If we are created perfect, then you can understand. But we are out of our control. We are created as imperfect beings. So we naturally will make mistakes. And for those mistakes, if we are being punished by being sent to hell forever, that seems unfair. On the other hand, if you do good, then you are sent to heaven forever. Doesn't sound logical. Vedanta is the only philosophy or the line of thinking that had given logical thought development as to what happens after death. So what they say is that this mind and intellect determine our life while we are living here. At death, it is the body that dies, but the mind and intellect, which is called the soul in most religions, this mind and intellect moves on. It's like, in this life, what our mind and intellect determines, that's what we do. After this meeting is over, where would you go? The next thought in your mind. If your next thought in your mind is that you are hungry and you want to go to a restaurant, that's what you do. You get into the car and you will head towards the restaurant. On the other hand, if the next thought in your mind is that you need to go to the bathroom, when you leave here, that's where you would be heading. So it is your thoughts that determine what your next action is. In the same way, at the death of the body, the thoughts in your mind will determine where you will go and the range of activities or the destination that you will reach will be determined by your mind and intellect. That's the logical thought. So, Vedanta says, life after death is thought to be mere speculation. All religions believe that life exists after death, meaning that it is the body that dies, but the mind and intellect, which is called the soul, moves on. What happens thereafter in most religions is a dogmatic declaration with no logical thought development except in Vedanta. Vedanta says death is a total divorce of the subtle body from the gross physical body. The body is divorced from the mind and intellect at the death of the body. Thereafter, therefore, the death is the destiny of the body and not the tragedy of the personality. So I, as the subtle body, this is the subtle body. This is called the gross body, that is this gross body, and the mind and intellect is called the subtle body. So I, as the subtle body, after discarding my gross body, again we do that here in this life as well. If my next plan is to swim in my swimming pool, what would I do? These clothes are not appropriate for that action that I plan on doing. So naturally, I will take off and discard these clothes and put on a swimming trunks to get into the swimming pool. In the same way, when this body is not appropriate for the needs of my body, my mind and intellect, which is determined by my vasanas. My vasanas are demanding that I exhaust it in a different way. And we decide that my personality decides that this body is not appropriate to exhaust those vasanas, then I discard this body. That's why, how it is explained, why there are young children who die. And why somebody at the prime of his life meets with an accident and dies. How come it happens? Nothing happens in this life by accident. Everything has a reason. Some of the reasons we don't understand. But Vedanta tries to give an explanation for those. So when the needs of my vasanas, to exhaust my vasanas, this body is not appropriate, I decide that this body should be discarded. And when I discard this body, my personality moves on and takes on a new body that will be appropriate to exhaust my unexhausted vasanas. And it will be at an appropriate environment for that purpose as well. So during this life, determine the quality of my life. They also determine the direction and range of my afterlife. Existence after death is caused by the quality and quantity of our desires and attachments. The nature of these desires is determined by the gunas. So the quality and quantity of my existing vasanas determine what kind of a life I am going to have after death. And these quantity and quality of my thoughts are again determined by these three gunas: sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. If one dies while in the sattvic mood, so if you die when you are in the sattvic mood predominantly, let's assume that we have these three moods and we try to cultivate the sattvic mood because that is the most noblest of the three moods. So we try to cultivate it as much as we can. if we succeed in being in the sattvic mood most of the time, and in that mood, let's say that we die, what will happen if we die when we are in the sattvic mood? Vedanta says if one dies while in the sattvic mood, that person attains higher realms of bliss. The thoughts are supposed to be a continuous thing. My thoughts yesterday and my thoughts this morning, there's a continuation. Our Gurudev says, you cannot be a doctor all your life, where you went to medical school, you practice medicine, and then one morning you wake up and you come up with a brand new relativity theory. Never happens. Why? Because your thoughts and your discipline in your mind has been in the field of medicine. How can you come up with a theory of relativity just all of a sudden? There's no continuity. There's always a continuity. My last week thoughts are continuous and it continues into this week. My last year's thoughts continue into this new year. So everything is a continuation. So in the same way, if you die in a sattvic mood, that's the mood that will continue into your next life as well. So naturally, when you die in the sattvic mood, which means when you are calm and composed and you are in a contemplative mood and you die in that mood, you will reach higher realms, meaning you will reach Brahmaloka, which is called heaven in other religions. If one dies while in the Rajasic mood, if you are in a Rajasic active mood, trying to be an entrepreneur, trying to make money and trying to get recognition and attaining power and all that. Suppose you die in that mood, you would be born into a family where there is a lot of action, because that is the most favorable environment for you to exhaust your vasanas. It is not a punishment. It's like if I'm an alcoholic, and I have trained my mind to drink, to go to the bar every evening at 6 o'clock. It is not that somebody is putting a gun to my head and telling me to go to the bar at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, my mind would want to go there. I am driven, I am compelled from within myself to go to the bar. So it is not a punishment. In the same way, when a Rajasic person dies, he will be born into a Rajasic, or where there is a lot of activity and action. He will be born into such a family where there is so much action that he can get into that and exhaust his vasanas. So that is the line that he has chosen. On the other hand, if one dies while in the tamasic mood, Vedanta says you will be born into a senseless environment, in an unintelligent environment, meaning where there is no intelligence, such as among animals. Animals have no higher intelligence. They have a mind. So the chances are that if you are in this tamasic mood most of the time, you would be born like an animal again. So it is not a guarantee that now that we have got a human form, that we are guaranteed to maintain this and go only higher. We could also go down if we practice animalistic tendencies while living in this world. So what are the results of cultivating these gunas? Thought determine actions, and thoughts and good thoughts give noble actions. Bad thoughts make you tyrannical. How does one change thoughts? So if you are in a certain thought pattern, and you want to change your thought pattern, like the recommendation is that you get into the sattvic mood of thought. How do you change your thoughts? Thoughts are so subtle, it is very difficult to change your thoughts. So Vedanta recommends that you try more gross things like behavior. You try to change your behavior. So even though your thoughts are rajasic, let's say, that your thoughts are always desiring something, trying to pursue some acquiring things and materialistic things, but you try to control that by your behavior. You are trying to not pursue that, but go to the temple and pray, try to help others. Now it may be a fake thing that you are pretending when actually your thoughts are rajasic, but you are acting in a sattvic manner. It is okay. Vedanta says it's okay because for a short time, when you try to do it that way, later on it becomes your nature. It's like children. When children, we discipline our children. We tell them, you go to bed at 9 o'clock. They want to be up and they want to play on their video game. But we say, no, you go to bed at 9 o'clock. You don't eat chocolates before going to bed because it will cause cavities in your teeth. They don't understand. But we are imposing that behavior on them. They won't accept it. But later on, when they grow up, they can look back and see the wisdom behind that kind of a restraint that was put on them. So although it was contrary to their thoughts, they were made to do certain things which they followed, and then later on they reap the benefits of that. In the same way, try to change your behavior first. Behavior in a sattvic manner. Even though the thoughts may be rajasic or tamasic, try to act sattvic. And when you do it that way, after a while, it becomes part of your nature and you automatically would become sattvic. That's the recommendation that Vedanta gives. So if one is sattvic, there is minimal agitation, capacity to direct thoughts in any single pointed project, passions and greed disappear, and he gets thrilling joy of mental serenity. So what's the benefit of cultivating these three moods? If you cultivate sattvic mood, the benefits are, it's listed here, that you will have minimal agitation in your mind and the capacity to direct your thoughts in any single pointed project. Right now, we may have some brilliant idea of doing something good, but halfway through doing that, our mind gets distracted. We are not able to focus our mind and discipline our mind to follow through in that general direction. But if you are in a sattvic mood, you would be able to do those things because your mind is controlled and disciplined at that point. In fact, the concept of happiness was analyzed. The question could be asked, what exactly is happiness? We all seek happiness, but what is happiness? Say if somebody says his happiness is if he has $1 million in the bank, then he will be happy. And in order to reach that happiness, he strives hard to make that $1 million. So he's working day and night, trying to save money and making sure that the money is invested properly. So it's a lot of agitation and restlessness in the mind. Ultimately, let's say that he actually gets that $1 million and he becomes happy. What happens? All the agitations that he had, trying to make that money, trying to protect that money, all that is now gone. Why? Because now he has got that $1 million. So because he got that $1 million, that agitation in the mind is now gone. So it is that peace of mind, that lack of agitation, that is called happiness. Unfortunately, in the materialistic world, once you get that million, you are not going to be happy. That happiness lasts only for a short period of time, because immediately there will be new desires that come to our mind, and then we want to pursue those. And it's a never-ending pursuit thereafter. The result of rajas is always pain. Now, if you are in a rajasic mode, where you are constantly seeking one project or another and trying to make money or trying to get power, in life you will always see, let's say that I have spent all my life accumulating wealth, and I have hoarded up a lot of wealth, a lot of property and a lot of money in the bank, and my children fight over it when I am about to die, because one says, I want all that. The other one says, no, I want equal share. And they will be fighting among themselves. And the fighting might end up in one killing the other, or there will be total disruption in the family. So after all my life of earning and saving and accumulating all that wealth, what have I accomplished? I die seeing my children fighting among themselves for that wealth. So Vedanta says, no matter what, rajasic pursuits always end up in pain. It will never give you happiness. So the result of rajas is always pain and suffering. And tamas, by the veiling of the intellect, you always make wrong choices and you accomplish nothing in life. And it will be a wasted life for that person. So in the ladder of evolution, if you see in this world, there are plants, animals and human beings. These are the living things in this world. Plants, animals and human beings. The difference is, in the plants, the consciousness is manifest to some extent. The plants do respond to sunlight and to moisture. If you grow a plant here inside this building, it will grow towards the window. Why? Because it responds to sunlight. So if the sunlight is on that side, the plant will grow that way. So there is consciousness in the plants. Animals have a little bit more consciousness than that. They not only respond to environment, but they also have consciousness about their young ones. They nurture their little ones. They go after seeking food. They store food for winter. They hibernate during winter time. So there is a little bit more manifestation of consciousness. In the human beings, there is even more manifestation of consciousness. We are able to postpone certain desires that come to our mind, because we know that certain things are not appropriate and certain things are appropriate, which the animals don't have. But the human consciousness and intellect is able to decide. The highest among human beings is the disembodied souls, meaning the spiritual masters who have been able to transcend the attachment to the body. They function in this world all right, but they do not have any attachment to this body. So the disembodied souls, so to speak, they manifest consciousness to a much higher level than you and me. So that is the ladder of evolution. And the Vedanta gives the example of a staircase. There's a staircase, there are steps going up, and then there is a platform, and then there are steps going further up. If you are in a sattvic mood, you are supposed to be on the steps that lead up to the top. Now that means even the sattvic person, when they reach only the top of the stairs. They are still not in the rooms on that floor, enjoying the comfort of those rooms out there. They are still at the top of the stairs. That's the sattvic person. A Rajasic person is supposed to be at the platform. He is there, trying to go up there, but he is not there, he is at the platform. The Tamasic person is always down here. He never even thinks of going up. He is always at the bottom level. So that's the ladder of evolution, the staircase. The lower stairs, platform, and the top of the stairs. If you abide in Sattva, you go upwards and reach the top. In the Rajas, you are at the platform, and in the Tamas, you stay down. But true liberation is when we transcend all these binding gunas. When you are in a train, you are inside a train, you are not moving, but nonetheless there is movement. You move from one place to another. Although you are not moving yourself, the train is moving you from one place to another. If you don't want to be moved, the true freedom from movement is only when you get down from the train and you are on the platform, and then when you watch the train, you are truly free of movement because you are not in the system of movement. In the same way, as long as you are controlled by these three gunas, the Sattvic, Rajasic and Tamasic, you are always going to be tossed about. It is only when you remove yourself from the control of these three gunas that you are truly liberated, that you are truly free. Thoughts, no need to feel hopeless. Why? Because Vedanta says you can transcend these moods by meditation. In meditation, you come to focus inwardly and you remove yourself from all identification from this body. You use your mind and intellect to remove yourself from attachment to the body, and then in time you can even transcend the mind and intellect as well. So you use the mind to get yourself up to a point, and then you discard the mind also and then reach the higher. The example again is pole vault. You know what pole vault is. If the bar is at 15 feet, there is no way that any human being can jump over 15 feet. That's too high. So you use a pole to propel yourself to that height. So you take the pole, come running and propel yourself. And with the help of the pole, you reach that height of 15 feet. When you reach that 15 feet bar and you push yourself over the bar, if you still hold on to the pole, you will knock the bar. So at that point when you are crossing the bar, you've got to throw the pole off, and then you fall on the other side of the bar and the bar still remains. That means you have cleared that 15 feet. In the same way, we use the mind and intellect to propel ourselves to that height. And when we reach a certain height, we would know at that point, that's the point where we discard our mind and intellect. And then Vedanta says, the Lord will suck you in. You don't have to do anything thereafter. You discard your mind and intellect and He would suck you up there. But we've got to do the work to get up there. For that, we need our mind and intellect. So if you reach that level, Arjuna asked the question, how would I recognize a person who had already reached that level? How would I know that somebody had reached that level? You know, if it is a horn that grows, then you know. If the horn is very big, oh, this man is realized really well. But there are no outward signs. So he is asking Lord Krishna, how would I recognize a person who has realized? He says, he is always equanimous, ever balanced. He craves nothing, no striving. And the three gunas, although present in him, have no effect. He has no attachments or any aversions to anything. The true test is in the marketplace, meaning you don't have to be, or you cannot be in the Himalayas, in the caves of the Himalayas, and say, okay, I am a sattvic person, I don't give in to any temptations. There are no temptations out there anyhow, in the caves of the Himalayas. True life is in the marketplace. Vedanta says, it is the sandalwood that is crushed that will give the fragrance of the sandalwood, or the tulsi leaves. If you crush the tulsi leaves in your hand, that's when the fragrance comes out. So the true test of a person is when he is tested. If I am a moral and ethical person, it might be because I didn't have any opportunity to commit any crimes. Suppose I'm given an opportunity where I think I won't get caught and I indulge in something bad. That is my true test of who my true character is, not what I portray to others outwardly. So the lack of opportunity is not my true morality. My true morality is where I am put to test all the time and again I prove that I am beyond all that. So Vedanta says a true man of realization, he lives amongst us. He is like all of us, living in the same place, eating the same food, breathing the same air, having the same temptations around. And yet, no attachments, no aversions, no desires, always equanimous. That's the hallmark of a realized person. And another feature is he has an indifferent attitude towards life. Gurudev gives this example. Suppose you are dreaming, and in your dream you are being chased by a tiger, and you are running to escape the tiger, but the tiger is gaining on you, and as the tiger is going to jump on you, you wake up. Once you wake up, you realize that you are safe, you are not being chased by the tiger. Suppose you are given the power to go back into that dream. Now you realize that it was only a dream, but you are allowed to go back into the dream. Now you are back in the dream and the tiger is chasing. What would be your attitude? You look at the tiger and you will be smiling at it. The tiger is, baring his teeth and is ready to pounce on you, but you are standing there and you are smiling. Why? Because you are aware that this is only a dream. That's the attitude of a realized person when he is living amongst us. An indifferent attitude towards good and bad. He knows that this is all not ultimately real. So he is unaffected by any of these things. An indifferent attitude. And he is same in pleasure and pain, in censure or praise. Again, Gurudev gives the example of Jesus Christ. When he was coming into Jerusalem and people were saying hallelujah and throwing flowers at him, he was not euphoric and exhilarated, just a half-an-inch smile on his face. The same person, a few months later, was being nailed on the cross, and he was carrying the cross through the narrow streets of Jerusalem, and people were throwing rocks and spitting on him. He had a half-an-inch smile on his face. So whether it is conducive or unconducive environment, maintain the same equanimous attitude. That is the hallmark of a realized person. An unswerving devotion. He has unswerving devotion. We have talked about this before. Again, Gurudev gives this example of Swami Vivekananda. Swami Vivekananda is a big, hefty man. He was. And in the early morning, to do his prayers, he was inside the river, outside the temple, waist high water. He was in the water praying. One small Bengali boy went up to him and said, Swamiji, please tell me what kind of attitude should I have when I pray to God? So Vivekananda held him by his neck and thrust him under the water. And held him under the water. The boy was struggling and the bubbles were coming up because he couldn't breathe. But he held him under the water. When the bubbles have kind of slowed down, then he pulled him up. And when he came up, he took a deep breath. Then Vivekananda asked him, when you were down there, what were you wishing for? You were thinking of your mama? You were asking for your father to come and save you? What were you thinking of? He said, all I wanted was half a cc of air. That's all I wanted, nothing else. Vivekananda said, that is the attitude you have. When you pray to God, you want nothing but His blessing. Unswerving devotion to the Lord when you pray. That kind of an attitude. That's the example that was given to demonstrate that is the thing that you need to have. And then when you have all those kinds of attitudes, when you die, you will merge with me. It's like the pot. When there is a pot, there is a pot space and then there is the cosmic space around. When the pot breaks, what happens to the pot space? The pot space becomes the cosmic space. In the same way, when we discard this body and this mind, what happens? We merge with the higher reality that's permeating the entire universe. With that, the 14th chapter ends and we'll go to 15th chapter, which is a very mystical chapter of all the chapters in the Bhagavad Gita. We'll start on that next time. Thank you.